Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mike from MOBOXgraphics.com, and in this video I'm just going to do this little micro interaction, and this is not a unique idea. I will give you a heads up. Eddy Gann from Dribble does these really awesome little micro interactions, and it's kind of inspired me to try to challenge myself in similar ways that he did. This one is obviously very similar, if not exactly, to one that he's already done. But I thought there were some pretty cool techniques here that I thought I'd show you. So in the future, you can expect a couple of these every month. So I don't know, they're cool, they're simple, but it's a little bit of a challenge. So let's just go ahead and jump right here into After Effects. And I have this composition, it's 800 by 600 already, with just a white background. So prior to this, I created a little mouse cursor in Illustrator. So you can see that it just looks like that. You can't see the background, but it is surrounded by white. I'm just going to continuously rasterize this layer, and I'm going to scale it down to kind of pointer size. So I think that that size is probably about right. And I'm just going to add a drop shadow to it. So you just come to Effects and Presets, search for drop, and drop a drop shadow on there. And I'm going to just kind of decrease the distance a little bit and increase the softness. So now it already looks like a mouse pointer. Pretty simple. So now for the bold, italic, and underline. So he didn't do underline, but I'm going to do underlined also. I'm just going to create some letters, some capital letters. You can see over here that I actually have a stroke on this. I'm going to just turn that stroke off, but I will be using a stroke for the bold letter. So just going to center this up. I'm going to actually move the mouse out of the way. And also I might as well just add motion blur while I'm here. I'm just going to center this up, duplicate this layer, Control D. I'm going to duplicate that twice. And then I'm going to turn that one to an I. And that one to a U. So you can see here we have a bold, underline, and we have italic. I'm just going to line these up a little bit to match how they're going to be laid out. Okay. So I'm just going to bring up a grid so I have a little bit better idea of where I want to line these up. I'm just going to make it simple for myself and line them up. Actually, what I should probably do also is just select all of these and set up the anchor point. I'm going to use my tool here from mountmograph.com, but if you don't have it, you could just press Y on the keyboard and move the anchor point. There's probably a shortcut to move the anchor point to the center of an object, but I don't know what that shortcut is. So once it's centered up, you can see that we just gotta move them over and line them up onto the lines. Pretty simple. I guess I can get rid of my grid now. And I'm going to create some rounded rectangles. So if you hold Shift, it creates a perfect rectangle. I'm just going to create a rectangle like that, set up the anchor point. Oh, it's snapping to the wrong object. Let's see, I think that's in the right spot. I'm just gonna center it up on that B. But I'm gonna make the fill none and increase the stroke size. So I think it's a little large, but I think we may be okay. We just might need to move some things around. I'm just gonna scale it down just a tad, S on the keyboard, and then just scale that down slightly. While I'm here, I might as well just duplicate this layer as well and center these up. So they're obviously really close to one another, so I'm going to actually open up the much more fine grid, which is grid, and I am going to move these things around. So that one's over the B, that one's over the I, that one's over the U, and let's just move a couple of these over a tad. Just like that. That looks like it has good spacing. And I'm going to turn my grid off now. I might as well turn on motion blur as well while I'm here. Okay, so these letters will be animated, and I want them to be animated just like Eddy did, but I'm going to show you how he did it. So, or how I think he did it, the easiest way I can think of. So for the B here, remember earlier I was talking about the stroke on the letters? I'm actually going to turn the stroke on But if I open this up and I go to animate, I can animate the stroke width. So when I select that, it allows me to decrease the width of the stroke. If you hold control while moving this bar, it gives you much finer control. So I'm going to go just before there's any boldness, which looks to be about there. So about -63. I'm going to do something. Actually, I'm going to do them one by one. Now I'll just do it like this. I'm going to do all the letters at the same time, just so you could see them right now in case that's all you wanted to see. So for the I, I'm going to animate. I'm going to add a skew. And what this does is it skews the letter. But for the U, I think I'm going to have to do something a little bit different. I'm going to move the anchor point to the top. Press Y on the keyboard and move it to the top. And I'm going to scale this actually up. Or scale this down, I'm sorry, to maybe 85. And then I'm going to draw a line underneath and animate that line. So while I'm here, I'm just going to draw a line and increase the stroke width. I probably should have drew it actually to the ends. Let me redraw that. I'm going to make it a little bit thinner than the actual shape. I'm going to center up the anchor point. I'm going to use my tool this time. See if I can't find that line, which is right there. I'm just going to drag that down. And if I turn my grid on, I could better see. So I have about one block plus a little bit. So I could actually, I should probably scale that up a little bit more, or scale that down a little bit more, and then move this shape up to about there. So that's what we're gonna do. So let's see, I guess we could start animating the B and the outlines. So I'm gonna just rename these layers to make it a little bit easier. Name that underline, put that under the U. I don't know what shape that is, so I'm just going to delete that shape. I think we accidentally created an extra shape. And I'm going to select these, and again, using my tool, I'm just going to hit name. I'm going to say outline. If you didn't have the tool, you would just right-click them each and go to rename. This tool is awesome, by the way. It's like $30 at mountmograph.com. It's like saves me so much time. There are some other tools that are free that do similar things, but I don't know, this one works for me, so I'm just going to stick with it. So I think now I could see that my mouse cursor could either be scaled up or these could all be scaled down slightly. I think I'm going to scale my mouse cursor up to maybe 15. I think that looks a little bit better. And let's start animating it. So I'm not going to animate them exactly like he did, but let's see. So I'm going to add a fill. So just going to search in my effects and presets for fill and drop this on the outline and drop this on the B. Coming here to 1 second, just as a baseline, I'm going to add keyframes for the fill. And I'm going to have them start at a light gray color. And for the B, I suppose I could keep them at the light gray color as well. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to add a fill. Instead, I'm going to actually do it via transparency. That way you could add any background and it will still look fine. I'll show you what I mean. Let's say I had a red background and I used the fill on here. Then it would look like that. Instead, if I use transparency, you can see it would look like that instead, which I think is a little bit more universal. So let me just delete that shape there because I don't need it. And I'm going to animate the opacity here. So I'm going to start the opacity at, let's say, 50%. I think that's a little bit high. I'm going to just bring it down to maybe 25%. Maybe the B, I'm gonna animate instead of the opacity, I'll animate the scale. Just gonna scale that down a little bit. And in addition, I have to animate the let's see, the stroke width. So if I press U on the keyboard, it brings up all of my properties. And I am just gonna go down maybe a second in time. I'm gonna increase the opacity. I'm gonna scale this up to 100. And I'm gonna add a little bit of a bolding to the letter. So let's see what that looks like. So obviously that's really slow, but that's okay. I think while I'm here, I'm also going to add an effect here on the outline of the path. Let's see, can I do a stroke width? I can. So again, pressing U on the keyboard, I'm just gonna increase this width by just a little bit, just to give it a little bit more character. So you can see that it was clicked on. Okay, so now I'm going to smooth this animation out. So I'm going to use my tool, but I'm going to show you what the graph editor will look like. I'm just going to do that, and this is what that will look like. So you can try to copy that. Let's see what that looks like. I think it's a little bit slow, by the way. I'm just going to bring this in just a tad. But this is what it will look like. You basically want all the graphs to look like that. Just a little bit of smoothing in the beginning. And you do that, by the way, by dragging these little bars. And so that's what you want it to look like. What's great about this is that you could just copy these keyframes, Control C, and paste them right over here. And this will allow me to reverse the keyframes. If I select them, right click, keyframe assistant, time reverse layers. However, what it doesn't reverse perfectly is the graph, right? So the graph is actually reversed. So I'm just going to fix these. I could use my tool for this. The tool would make it significantly faster, but and it would make it more perfect. I'm bound to make some mistake doing it this way, but I just want to show you that it is possible to do it this way. Just going to drag these in. And then the last one. So you can see that this would be a total pain in the ass if you had to do this like a ton of different layers, which is why I highly recommend the tool. So now you see that that'll exit animation at the same kind of rate. So in retrospect here, I think I'm just going to just copy this outline and paste it, Control C, Control V, and use it over these letters, so that way I don't have to basically redo that whole animation. So let's see. I can delete that, Control paste, put it over there, and then reline these up. That way I don't have to redo all that graph editing garbage. So selecting all those layers, just hitting U on the keyboard, I can start to move these around. Ooh, it looks like 10 seconds may not be enough. Let me just drag these in. Just like that. Obviously, the animations aren't all done. For instance, on the U and the I. But, you know, it gives us a point of reference so we know how to animate the rest. So for the eye now, I'm just going to use, again, my animator here. And I'm going to add a skew. Whoops. I forgot. I must line up this point, this time marker, and I'm just going to do that by pressing J on the keyboard. J and K allows you to bounce between keyframes, by the way. It's a great keyboard shortcut. So I'm just going to set a skew keyframe and a position keyframe, and I'll show you why in a sec. Pulling up all my keyframes and hitting K. When I skew this letter, it's not quite center anymore. So to get around that, I'm just going to press Y on the keyboard, move that anchor point to the center, and then move that to the center. And let's see. I just got to make sure that that's lined up. So you see, just like that. And this time I'm going to use my tool. I'm not going to go through the steps of using the graph editor, but the same steps would apply. In addition, this tool allows you to clone keyframes, so you don't have to copy and paste it. And then I would just reverse this like we did before. And quite simply add the effect. So again, this could all be done in the graph editor, but it just takes way too much time using the graph editor. All right, so last one up is the U. So I'm just gonna set a scale keyframe, and I'm actually gonna set a scale keyframe for both. However, this, since it's already kind of the end of the animation, I actually need to move these keyframes over here. So let me just back these up right there, hitting J. I'm just gonna set the scale to 0 on the line and the scale to 100 on the U. One other thing is that the line is actually kind of bumping into the U, so I'm actually gonna set a position keyframe as well. Hitting K on the keyboard, and I'm just going to put the position down, as well as a transparency keyframe. So it's a little bit smoother. Whoops, I think my positions are backwards, so I'm just gonna select them and reverse these keyframes. Just like that. Select all my keyframes and use the tool, but you could line them up in the graph editor. And now I can just select these and hit clone, and they'll be cloned, and then fix the curves. Okay, so that's how I did those. And that might be a little slow, but we could speed them up later. Whoa, that was weird. Did I not time reverse these? I'm just gonna add the same smoothing to all these just in case, because I did do a few by hand. So that'll fix all of them to be the same. Again, you can't do that if you don't have the tool, but that's okay. You could always use the graph editor, no problem. Perfect. So now I just need to do the animation with the mouse and deal with these keyframes later. So I'm just gonna lock those layers so I don't accidentally mess them up. And I'm just gonna move the mouse on top. So let's see, I'm gonna have the mouse start there, set P on the keyboard, set a position keyframe, and come up here like this, and then setting another keyframe, so that'll add a stop. It'll stop there for a sec, and move it over here. One thing you notice is that these lines are very rigid. If I select all these keyframes, right click and go to keyframe interpolation, I could turn this to Bezier, and it gives me little Bezier handles, so it could kind of, add a little bit of bend to it. Most of the time, a mouse doesn't really, you tend to be pretty direct. You don't really do any rounding, but I find that sometimes it does make things look a little bit smoother. We'll see if I end up actually doing that in the final. That is one byproduct of Bezier handles. You see how it's moving when it's not supposed to be moving? That's because it's got Bezier interpolation on. Let me see, spatial interpolation. I'm just going to click linear. So let's see what that does. That actually broke it. There's two settings in there and I always forget which one to click. Temporal interpolation. Let's see if that broke it. It still breaks, it still doesn't work. The one way around that would be to simply set a keyframe right before this by copying and pasting it, right clicking that keyframe and going to keyframe velocity, or not keyframe velocity, keyframe assistant, toggle hold keyframe, I think. You know, after looking at them, I don't remember I said that it doesn't really look great when they're all over the place. I kind of agree with my past self. And I'm just gonna hit OK. It avoids that issue with that keyframe bouncing around, and it makes the animation look a little bit more natural and realistic. So I think that one is definitely too fast, so I'm just gonna drag that out a little bit. Okay, so now opening up all these layers, pressing U on the keyboard allows me to start lining up these keyframes. So I think these animations need to happen much faster. So if I select all of them and hold Alt and grab the last keyframe, I could drag them in and make them happen a lot faster, and it's all linear. So let's see here. So you can kind of tell where I want these animations to start and end. So I kind of want them to start as soon as the mouse kind of touches the interior, and end just as it's leaving. So I could have the second one start there. Just like that. So anyways, guys, I know this was kind of long and it was pretty simple, but I think that if you were new to After Effects, you probably learned a ton in this video. So I hope you did. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you want to see more kind of micro interactions like this, be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to go check out Eddy Gann's Dribble account. He's got some pretty awesome stuff, and give him a shout out. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching.